Hey, Discerned listeners, Love is Blind Season 3 cast interviews. Let's watch.
I don't have empathy for them. But she was like, but you're actually hyper empathetic, but you'll put up walls because you don't want people to see that you care so much or feel everything the way you feel it. And so she goes, because of that, what you do is you're carrying a lot of people's energies around you that you shouldn't be carrying. And so she was like, so what you need to do is you need to say this and speak this and like kind of manifest this of like, I'm only responsible for Cole's energy today, not all these other people's energy. So I was doing that and it was kind of working. And
Yeah, interesting. It's not really my style. I mean, if I came across that in a client, I would obviously bring it up, but it's not usually the line of thinking I'm assuming. He says that, I don't know if I included it, but it's like he's only been to a couple sessions at this point. And the date of this would have been like early December, it looks like, late November. And at least I think that's what he said. And he's saying that he's learning that he comes across as if he doesn't have empathy, but in reality, he's hyper empathetic and is soaking up a lot of stuff. But what he actually needs to do is to draw boundaries around his empathy so that he doesn't become overwhelmed, I think is what we're hearing.
you need to say this and speak this and like kind of manifest this of like, I'm only responsible for Cole's energy today, not all these other people's energy. So I was doing that and it was kind of working. And then it hit me. The next step was, you need to clear the air with that person too. So that's where I took the next step. And I'm like, I need to tell.
Yeah, this is essentially differentiation work. There's a lot of different other words for it. You could say it's cognitive therapy as well, other forms of therapy. But the closest thing in my world would be differentiation, in that you need to differentiate yourself from other people, meaning that when other people are suffering and you're taking on all of that energy in a way that causes you to suffer or causes you to pull away from people or blame people or something, then you need to differentiate. You need to say, like, they have their problems and they're not my problems. I recognize their problems and I might be able to help them with their problems, but they're not my problems. Their emotions they're happening and I care, but they're not my emotions. I'm not responsible for that per se, depending, of course. And then when you can actually differentiate, the worry is that you're going to lose people. But really what it gives you is the ability to then take care of people because you're not overwhelmed with their emotions. You're not blaming yourself or ashamed of not, because this will happen. People will have a partner that will be hurt or scared or upset, and their partners will feel ashamed of themselves, even though their partners have nothing to do with it, because their partner is going through something. Some of you might be able to relate to that. It's like, I'm failing because my partner or my kid is going through something difficult. It's my fault. And then when that happens, of course, you can have all sorts of problems, right? Emotionally, personality-wise, and you might even blame the person, be like, how come you're doing this? Because you're desperately trying to find an answer to get rid of the shame. But when you differentiate, then you can relax and then actually take care of someone. And it kind of sounds like that's what he's saying.
All these other people's energy. So I was doing that and it was kind of working. And then it hit me. The next step was, you need to clear the air with that person too. So that's where I took the next step. And I'm like, I need to tell them as well, like, hey, I know we need to fix these things because I'm carrying this stuff that you can feel between us. It's in the air between us. Like, we both know there's an elephant in the room, and I just want you to hear it from me that I don't have the ability to carry that elephant. I need to just say it to you, clear this, so we can both go live free. Because like anyone who's holding grudges.
Oh, okay, so that's different than what I thought where he was headed. So he explicitly goes to these individuals and said, I don't know what he's referring to exactly, but he's saying that he goes to them and says that he is not responsible for their feelings. And let's rewind.
I don't have the ability to carry that elephant. I need to just say it to you.
Yeah, it's hard to know what that means. Obviously, there's a lot of possibilities there. It sounds like he's identified early in therapy that that's a problem of his, that he takes on a lot, and he deserves to be able to draw a boundary about that. And I don't know. I don't know.
Clear this so we can both go live free. Because like anyone who's holding grudges, or you just know that there's beef or that relationship's not what it should be, it's like, it's affecting you. it's squishing you in life in some ways.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's talking about people that have grudges against him, maybe Zenab, and he then goes to those individuals and says, I am not responsible for your feelings, and so I am going to move on in life. Is that what I hear? So that he can free himself from ruminating on the fact that someone has a grudge against him? Is that what we're hearing?
Listening really get that.
Yeah, that was free. You didn't have to pay for that therapy.
Yeah,
session.
you didn't have
just
to pay
listen
for
to
that.
one.
Are you an empath?
I think so. I think that's what she was telling me.
Okay, so this term empath gets thrown around a lot on the internet, and I hear some therapists utilizing it. It's not, to my knowledge, a science-based term or a well-defined, well-researched term. I think what often people are referring to is people who are particularly sensitive to other people's feelings. And we do know that those people do exist, but I don't think in the clinical literature is, broad. There's mountains of studies and literature that is considered to be a respectable, and so I can't know everything. If I did a dissertation on it, I would have to look up all the literature. Whenever you do a research study, you're expected to read all the literature on that topic and understand the landscape there. So, but I haven't done a study on that, so I don't know. But anecdotally, I'll say that people will tend to use this term empath. Like, I'm an empath, and I'm always like, well, what does that mean? I think it can mean a lot of different things. I would venture to say that most of us are empaths, meaning that most of us do absorb other people's feelings. It's just a human. We are extremely social creatures. A lot of our evolution was geared towards selecting for those humans who recognized and could signal what's going on inside of them emotionally. If I remember right, it's the hypothesis as to why we don't have fur on our face. Most animals, like related to us, cousins, they have hair on their face. Also, we have the whites in our eyes because a lot of our emotion is expressed through our eyes. The way we move our eyes, or the way and we have tons of micro muscles in our face, not because they serve any kind of function for eating or for survival, but to express emotion. Think about all the facial expressions and the subtleties, just as I'm talking right now. Think about all the I don't know, hundreds or thousands of muscles that are involved in me, like doing my various different facial expressions, and how that represents my emotion and what I'm trying to say and how you're going to receive it. We are social creatures, and so we are empaths. We are designed to be empathetic. There are some anomalous individuals who lack that empathy, but they are extremely rare, on the order of maybe 1%, maybe less. And so I think when people say, I'm an empath, I'm guessing anecdotally what I find that people are referring to is either they're like Cole, where they're not particularly absorbing other people's emotions, but maybe he is, but I don't know, he didn't seem to come across that way. And they have this perception that it seems, because if you just look in the world, it seems like no one cares about anybody, really. And even if you talk to people, it just seems like people are like, yeah, who cares? Haters are going to hate. And then you're in this corner going like, wow, I feel like I'm really soaking up other people's things. Well, in all likelihood, everyone is soaking up everybody's things to a certain degree, and they're just in denial of it, and they don't want to admit it or something. And so the person who can admit it to themselves, they perceive themselves as being much more empathetic compared to the crowd, because they're the only ones that are able to admit it and talk about it. But in reality, everyone's like that. They're just able to admit it. I think another pathway to self-identifying as a quote-unquote empath is people who grew up in families where it was very important for you to actually pay very close attention to how your parents were feeling, or someone in your family. Like a common example is you have an abusive alcoholic parent. So say your mother is abusive and alcoholic, and as she drinks, she becomes more likely to become violent and irrational and angry and hostile. And so you, as a 3-year-old, become extremely attuned to how much she's drinking and how intoxicated she is. I mean, all y'all out there, if you had an alcoholic parent, particularly if they were abusive, you could probably break down into, they'll say, well, I'll just talk about Seattleites. We have many words for rain because there's a lot of different rain moments in Seattle. And so we have sprinkling, we have showers, we have, there's a lot of words for rain. I can't think of them right now. Misting, sprinkles, did I say that? Anyway, when you experience something frequently and it really affects your life, and your life might even literally depend on it, then you can become very discriminatory around different levels. And so if you had a parent who was abusive and alcoholic, and it was your role to actually attend to that, which, depending, then you could probably break down your parents' drunkenness on like a 20-point scale, or maybe even more than that, where it's just like, okay, yeah, no, she's like a 4 right now. She's not a 5, because when she's a 5, she's like this, she's not a 3 because, and so what happens is, as a child, you become, and your neurons actually develop. It's a learned skill that you practice daily that becomes very attuned to other people's emotions. And so you can, the way someone walks and the tone of their voice, and in the process you ignore you because you don't have time to focus on you. So you're not good at knowing what you feel, but you're really good at noticing what other people feel because your life depends on it. So these individuals, as adults, will find themselves different than other people in that they really are attuned to other people's emotions and really soak up other people's emotions, right? So it makes sense, right? There are other reasons why someone would have that experience that I won't bore y'all with, but those are some common ones. So anyway, he's saying that he's an empath. And, he could be in that category of individuals who, to a greater than average degree, really does soak up other people's emotions. Usually that's because of traumas that dictated that, right? So maybe he went through that.
That's what I am. And
Yeah.
so it's very easy for me to always feel like really drained. And my biggest thing that people always say is like, I'm very guarded.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guarded because I view the world through my emotions. That's the way that I live and feel.
Right.
And so I'm always like, I gotta help out this person over here. I'm driving around with gift cards in my car to give out.
Right. Another pathway is through what I would call codependent personality, but there's a lot of definition of codependency. Listen to my whole deep dive, or overfunctioning is a more universal term in my field, in that you, as a child in your family, you were socialized and rewarded and maybe even punished into a position where you had to take care of other people, and you had to take on responsibilities of other people. Often it's your parents, parentified individuals. And when other people are suffering, and it'll really, you'll ruminate on it because your neurons are organized in such a way because of the way you developed that you can't let go of those things, and you notice those things. And that's kind of what he's talking about. Like, if I have a family member who is suffering this way, like, I can't stop thinking about it. And the solution isn't just to draw a boundary, it's to get to know your own needs and to get to know your own worth and to also have balance, right? There's nothing wrong with noticing other people's problems and attending to it, but there's something wrong if that's the only direction of care, because you deserve people to care about you. And typically with this syndrome, there's no signaling and no awareness on behalf of the codependent individual, the overfunctioning individual, of their own needs. They might even say, I'm good, I'm fine, I never have any problems, when they definitely have problems that they need to be signaling and actually having some balance there.
To homeless people if I see them, because I always feel bad. I'm like, oh man, I can't do that. Or you ask me for a favor, I'm like, okay, I can't say no. It's people pleasing too. And so I didn't get that until now I'm like 40, right? 41.
You're 41?
Yeah.
I thought you were like 33, man.
Oh, thanks, man. The black don't crack. I'm telling you. The black don't crack. A couple green juices.
And yellow don't mellow. Yeah, I did not think he was 41. I thought he was a lot younger than that.
Do you regret this experience truly now? And we're going to play this in its entirety so we don't have to chop it up, and you can just know that whatever you say, it's going to be just that.
Yeah. I think the answer is no, not in its entirety. I don't regret the whole thing.
Okay.
But to that moment that happened at the reunion, I said I regretted it because I truly do regret hurting someone if that's what occurred, right? It's like when I was getting that information, when I was hearing those things, I was like, then I wish I would have never done this.
Okay, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.